Today we are driving the new Opel Mokka, and not any Mokka, this is the hybrid version. My name is Peter and I'm going to show you around this car today, and that it's the hybrid is important because this is a triple lineup car. You have a normal petrol version, you have the hybrid that we have here, and you have a full electric version available. So Opel's pretty proud on the fact that you have so much to choose within this car alone. This is Opel's compact SUV. It's for people that are too big for a Corsa probably and too small for a Grandland, that's later in life. So it's a compact car, 4.15 m long, 1.70 m and a bit wide, so it's not big, but it's certainly very usable and very practical, as we'll see on the inside later as well. Back to the front, we got the Opel visor here, obviously, very recognizable, and I think in this crazy blue color, it's quite a striking car. Opel's also very proud of the fact that these LED matrix lights are apparently the most pixel count or something in the business, so that's great. And overall, I think it looks good here from the front. You can certainly be proud to have this on your driveway. You can see there's a two-tone theme going on here. So we got the black here in the bumper and in the wheel arches, then the blue, and it gets black here on the top again. It's a bit of a trend in the car industry. It's a bit of a sort of trick on the eyes to make the car look bulkier than it is. But, you know, in the end, it does look quite good, especially with this black on the wheels. Note, by the way, that there is no chrome on this car. Opel's pretty proud of the fact that this is a chrome-free car, because chrome is bad for the environment, and Opel wants to make a more eco-conscious car. Something we'll see on the inside as well, with a lot of recycled materials and vegan-friendly seats and all that. But here on the outside, no chrome, and I think that looks better in general anyway. 18-inch wheels on this version, and again, the whole two-tone theme continues here in the rear as well, which is quite nice. I think it's a good-looking car from the side. 4.15 m long, like I said, so if I stand in front of it, you can see it's not a big car, but it's certainly not small, and it's very usable on the inside as well. Moving towards the rear, again, classic Opel design, with this signature light on the back. I think it looks quite nice. These taillights are a bit raised out of the body as well. I'm not really sure why that is, but it does look really good. And here you got the hybrid badge as well. The rear window is nice and big too, with a real wiper. So no nonsense that it's warm enough or aerodynamics or anything that you don't need that. Just a wiper, that's the way we like it. Obviously we need to have a look at the boot. You would think that the opening is over here, but it isn't. You have to go one lower for the release. Not really sure why, because you don't want that too low in the car, because the lower you go, obviously the dirtier the car will get, especially in winter. But here we are. Opening that back up, you can see about 300 liters and a bit, 2 hand luggages and a backpack, and it's full. But it's a very usable amount of space, I think, for the size of the car. This is not a car per se that you're going to use for a family holiday, but this is enough space for a bunch of bags, some check-in luggage even, all as well. There's a double floor as well. And if you put the rear seats down, you have about 1,100 liters of space. The opening is nice and big too, nice and square, so it's very usable in terms of what you put in there and how you use that volume as well. Here in the front of the Opel Mokka, there's a lot of good news. The first bit of good news is buttons. All buttons and no touchy swipey stuff. Awesome. Opel obviously is the German brand of the Stellantis group, and it's really proud that it's a German brand. So a lot of its core values are simplicity, decent operation, ease of use, those kind of things. And you can really tell because everything here is buttons, and even things like the infotainment screen, when you listen to the developers, they're like, yeah, we make the touch surfaces bigger so it's easier to use while driving. So Opel really thinks about that. So when we look through the cabin, we have traditional controls here on the left for your mirrors and your windows. We have buttons on the steering wheel. We have buttons for the Klima unit. It's all very logical and very easy to use, also while you're driving. So that's well done. When we take a look around, the second thing that you notice is that this sort of cockpit unit is sort of curved around me as the driver. Not to the sense that you like feel fully cocooned or anything like that, but it is nice that there's a little bit of an angle to the main things that you interact with towards me as a driver. Because in the end, the driver is always in the car, so it's nice that you can operate things just a little bit easier than when it would be flat on the dashboard. So starting here on the left, like I said, traditional controls for the windows and the mirrors. Good job. Same thing with the steering wheel. It's a bit of an oval shape, but it's real buttons only. So we got your system controls like volume and your system controls for your driver's display here on the right. All cruise control things on the left, and that is all you're going to get. So nothing here underneath the steering wheel or anything, because the gear selector is here in the middle as well. So that's nice. It's an oval shape with a flat bottom, not to the point where it becomes annoying to hold, and especially annoying when you go through corners. It's still a nice steering wheel to operate. Behind the wheel you got some flippers for when you want to do manual shifting in some kind of situation. Not really sure when or why, but the option is there. And you have traditional stalks for your wipers and your lights and your indicators and so on. So that's super easy to use. Looking through the steering wheel, I got my Opel driver's display. Obviously, you can put anything on there from your stated charge to your navigation, and you got some basic information. So that's cool. What's not so cool is the big plastic bits on the side of the display. You get a bit of a feeling, my cameraman noticed it as well, that it looks like they developed it for the option to have digital mirrors. So when there's no rear view mirrors on the side, but a camera, and then you have a display over here. But obviously it isn't. So now you just have a plastic bit. The other option that I can think of is that in the future they want to put a wider screen there, and they want to leave some space for that. But I'm not really sure why this has to be ugly plastic now. The ugly plastic continues sort of all the way around. This is all shiny piano black, which again, I'm not sure why it's there, because it's a horrible material to begin with, as you know, and it doesn't really add anything to the equation. Preferably they would have used something like this, which is more of a matte finish, which is much nicer, no fingerprints and so on. But okay, it is what it is. The central display is super easy to use. Most of the time you're going to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but you know, it's a fine display. It has a Snapdragon architecture underneath, and it just does everything you want it to do. So it works pretty easily to navigate through things. And as you can see, like I mentioned before, the icons are big. They make the ease of use is central to the development of the software as well. A few physical buttons underneath. So I got a home button, volume knob, and a one-touch ADAS button. So with this one, I can go straight to my driver assist things like lane keeping, speed warning, and stop start and so on. Small touch, but very handy, because that's something you have to do every single time you get into the car. So it's great that Opel thought of that and makes it easy to go that way. Then a big physical vent, easy to use and control, and a big physical klima unit. That's the way it should be. Knobs to change the temperature, a knob to change the fan speed, and some buttons for your seat heating, your steering wheel heating, your window heating and so on. That is all that you want. This is how a klima unit should be. It's easy, everybody understands how it works, and you can operate it without looking at it. And that is excellent. Below, a bit of an interesting lip here for your phone. This is the phone that comes with the car for the navigation on this press event. But it's really meant to put your phone like this, so you can use it for navigation or something if you don't want to use the screen. So that's handy. Behind it, a big bin with some sunglasses and the keys in there now, but this is also your wireless charging pad. You got a 12-volt socket here and a USB. The USB looks like it's developed like a USB-A, but they put a USB-C port in there in the end. So that's probably a retrofit, but hey, it's there and it's USB-C, so that's cool. Then the central tunnel. This is where you see that Opel is part of the Stellantis group, because this is the way they handle their platform in terms of drive select and so on. So we got 3 driving modes here: Sport, Eco and Normal. Your drive selector, your parking button, and even a manual option with the flippers like I mentioned before. Parking brake, 2 cup holders. There's 2 bottles in there now. You can see that there's some piano black around it, and that these are non-adaptive, so they will rattle about a little bit, but overall it's fine, and they're also out of the way, so that is good. You have a central armrest that slides into the cup holders, so you know, if you have something big here and you want to have this forward, it doesn't work, but okay. And it can also open up, and then you have a reasonably deep bin that you can actually fit one of these bottles into, but without any kind of charging options in there or anything, but still pretty usable. The thing with this armrest though is that it doesn't click in place, so it slides, and it always slides. So that means when you're sitting here, you can slide this with your elbow while driving. So that is not ideal. I would have preferred some kind of ratchet system inside that you can actually lock it in place. But it is what it is. Interesting touch as well is that here on the front there is an ISOFIX option for the passenger seat, because this car is a perfect example of a size car that you have maybe with a first kit or with a second kit already in the back. And then it's nice that you can have your child seat here as well. Overall, it's a pretty good cockpit, I think. The materials are all eco-friendly, vegan-friendly, and all that stuff for the enthusiasts among us, which is nice. I mentioned on the outside that Opel goes chromeless. It's the same thing in here. The materials are reusable and also reused already in many ways, so that is admirable that Opel does it that way. There is some examples of hard and scratchy plastic here and there, especially when you go a bit lower in the cabin. But not to the point that it becomes annoying. The stuff you interact with on a daily basis is still good quality and easy to use, so that is quite nice. So it's a nice cockpit to be. The seats are comfortable. I have good view out. The rear window is quite high as well, so I have a good view out as well. Even with passengers on the side, it's pretty good. And overall, it's a good place to be. I like it. Also for longer journeys, you can get comfortable here and feel at home. All right, time to show this Mokka some corners. And some corners we have, because we are on Mallorca for this press drive. And you can see ahead that it is quite a twisty mountain road. I have it in sport mode at the moment. There's an eco and a normal mode as well. And depending on the mode you pick, you get more or less power from the hybrid system. We have a 3-cylinder 1.2 liter engine in the front, developing about 136 horsepower, and a 28 horsepower 48 volt system in terms of electronic deployment, which together is not a lot, let's be honest, but this car also doesn't weigh a lot with just over 1,300 kilos. And I think with those two numbers in mind, you can already get a bit of an idea of how this car is to drive. It's of course a compact SUV, so by no means this is going to be some kind of race car, especially on roads like this. But if you manage your expectations a little bit and drive this car maybe at 2/3 of its capabilities, then it is a very relaxing car to drive. It's not rewarding or anything like that. It's just, you know, a good vehicle to move around in. On corners like this and on roads like this, it's going to run out of steam pretty quickly. There's simply not enough power to sort of hurl it around corners and to pull it out of a hairpin. That's not the case at all. And the same thing with the steering. It's feel enough to move around town, but for corners like this, there is simply not enough communication coming from the front. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. I mean, this car is not in its natural habitat on roads like this. This car feels much more at home in a city, in a smaller environment, you know, when you're taking your kids to school or to swimming lessons or driving in and around town. That's where this car shines, and that's where the light steering comes into play. That's where the hybrid system really helps you with that, you know, the little overtakes, the little snappy crossings at the intersection. It's just nice to drive that way, and really roads like this, it can handle it just fine as long as you manage your expectations a bit and make sure that you approach this road, this kind of driving, with the right mindset. The powertrain on one side, obviously that is what it is. There's also an electric version available if that is more your cup of tea, or you can go for a full ICE version with no hybrid assistance. So it's actually quite nice that you have a lot to choose within the model itself. So this car being only 4.15 meters long, we gotta obviously see how that impacts the rear seats. And as you can see, with 1.83 meters, I barely fit behind myself. I'm fully touching the seat with my knees, which is not that much of an issue as you might think, because the back of the seats is soft. So there's no plastic cover here. And as you can see, the seat is quite contoured as well. So that's quite nice, and I can still sit reasonably comfortable here. Obviously, I'm not going to sit like this for a long journey or anything, but for short trips, this is more than fine. Also, the space underneath the seat is more than adequate for my feet to move about. So that's excellent too. That really adds to the comfort. And overall, I fit back here with 1.83 meters and about 90 kilos. I have about this much headroom left. So, you know, as far as that goes, it is all fine. Material-wise, it is the same stuff at first glance as in the front. So you have the same sort of recycled seat material, some vegan leather and all that stuff. All is well, but you can see that the quality gets a bit less back here, like the door panels, for example, that are fake leather in the front, and here it is hard plastic. And same thing goes for the armrest, hard plastic as well. But there are still some creature comforts back here. So I got 2 USBs, I got some seat pockets, and I got my own window switch. So as far as that goes, it's fine. But it's missing a few things like ventilation control, and there's no central armrest either. I'll sit here in the middle so you can have a look. There is a bit of a transmission hump, by the way, so it's requiring a bit of yoga to move your feet from one side to the other, but it's fine. When I sit here, I do acknowledge that my hips are quite wide, or I have a big butt, but I'm sitting right on the seatbelt lockers, so not really comfortable. They're really sort of poking me in the butt here, so that's not great. But I do fit, and I also have a little bit of headroom left. But I'm not going to sit here much as an adult, because you can see how far I'm ingressing into the seats on the side. So adults on the side for sure, and you can maybe fit a kid in the middle because there is a third seat belt. But basically it's a two-person affair back here. Sitting here though, I'm comfortable. The seats are not very supportive, especially not on roads like this, but they're fine. I'd say for a mid to long journey, you're going to be okay in seats like this. And I have a good overview out. There's a lot of light coming in to the cabin, at least here in the front. So overall, it's a quite pleasant place to be. The materials are good enough, I'd say, for a car like this. And especially the parts that Opel really sort of touts as like, listen, we are Opel, we're doing it right. Like the interaction with the cockpit is quite nice. Like the buttons are all in a logical place. They do what you think they do. You reach for things and they are actually where you're reaching for, like the Klima unit, for example. So Opel really tries to put that German DNA in the way they design everything around you, and it works. In many ways, it is a very pleasant place to be for me as the driver. So obviously on a road like this, it's easy to provoke the car a little bit, and as a test drive, it's fun to do so. When you do, the car runs out of steam pretty quickly, and it's mostly understeer, 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 and nothing more than that. There's no action in the drivetrain, there's not enough response in the steering for any kind of serious driving, and I think especially on roads like this you find those kind of shortcomings pretty quickly. It's also because of the tires, obviously, because it's an eco-orientated tire on this car, so you can solve it a little bit with a different tire choice, but that is sort of beside the point of this car. I think overall, you know, like I said, a two-third car, when you drive it at two-thirds of its capabilities, it feels most at home. And if you manage your expectations in terms of can you push this car to any sense, no, not at all. That's not what this car is for. It's a cruising car for on the highway, for medium journeys. And other than that, it is a nice car to move around in and around town, but nothing, you know, other than that. Obviously, this Opel Mokka comes in several flavors. I got the price list for you right here. It starts with the turbo engine, no hybrid assist, for 32,000. There's also a fancy version available for 33.5. Then you go to the hybrid option, same turbo but with hybrid system. It is a edition for 34,000, and the GS, which is the luxury version, for 35.5. Then you can also go full electric, also again the Edition and the GS varieties for 36 and 37,000 euros. So that is all you have for choices. All round, I think Opel puts on quite a car here with this Mokka. I think it's quite nice that there's so much to pick, that there's a drivetrain for everybody and also a price point for a big audience. There's not much to complain except the fact that obviously you have to live with the constraints of this car. The boot is what it is. There's no way around it with this size of car, that you're going to have to compromise somewhere. But I think all around it's a strong package in this form factor where you can fit a first family, a first kid, maybe even a family with teenagers if they're not too tall, all will be well. And if you're too big for this car, you can grow up within the Opel lineup. So that is quite nice as well. All round, I think the price point also warrants a certain amount of material choices inside. There's some hard plastics if you're looking for it, but I think Opel has done quite a good job in giving that Opel DNA into the interior, the ease of use and the functionality of everything that you touch. I think Opel is doing quite well and really emphasizing that Germanness of the brand within the Stellantis group. So all round, I think it's a nice car. I think it's a nice looking car. It's a car that has certain expectations in terms of how you drive it, but I think when you manage those expectations well, I think this is a great choice in this segment. That's all I got for you in this video. Thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. A sub to the channel is always appreciated, of course, and you don't miss any future videos. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.